Hello and welcome to this Whitestone Lightning tutorial. Today we will be discussing polygons. What is a polygon? It's essentially a shape that you can draw attached to an object in Whitestone. Polygons are loaded from scan area files, which contain magnitudes away from the center of an object in the following manner. Oopsie, that's not good. Apologies. Now, every three values is another point, or another set of magnitude, or another set of magnitudes. So, this object will have a point 16 units away from the center of the object on the x-axis, 16 units away from the center of the object on the y-axis, and 1 unit away from the center on the z-axis. Careful not to make an enter or a new line at the end of these files. And we just load this up into Whitestone. We add a new component, polygon. Now, polygons need to have their color set, and the way you do that is you just make a new color wrap object and enter RGB values that can go up to 255. For those of you who are not Java or C++ programmers, just remember to do this and then fill in the values. We have to set its render layer just like a sprite, and we have to tell the draw just like a sprite. Now I've told the object to rotate to demonstrate that this still works just the same way as a sprite. There you go. We can even have one of these and a sprite at the same time. Just like we can have any two kinds of component, or not just two, any n number of components at the same time. Well, you can have a maximum of 3 right now. You can have a polygon, you can have a scan area, you can have a sprite, whatever combination you like. That's the point behind the component system. So let's take a look at what happens now that we have a sprite. We've added to the render layer, told it to draw, everything, all those nice things. We will see that we have a polygon and a sprite now. Oops, I filled some code too early. Business as usual. They're both on top of each other, both work in the same way. You can even add points to polygons, just like this. So polygon, add point, magnitude away from center of object. Okay, so I think that's a pretty basic thing to understand. I'd like to talk about singleton : get object. What does this do? If we specify an object ID in here, an object's ID in here, and an object's component ID in here, the singleton will search for all the objects it has and retrieve an object with those specific values and set it to the object global. So if we have this up here, oops, we assign this to some obscure object like with ID 432. Let's just keep it at this ID right now. Object would be an object with this same object ID, this same component ID, except it would be the object with ID 432. If you don't understand the ID system, go back and watch the tutorial entitled "I Will Need Your Identification, Sir." So, go find an object with ID 432, object ID, whatever this object ID is, and component ID, whatever component ID this is. And then object will be assigned to that. But right now we're just assigning it to our object, so we don't do anything crazy. But the functionality is easy to understand. And there's a couple gotchas I'd like to mention. The first one is if you get an object, let's say 1, and then you do stuff with that. That's going to be a problem if we don't have this, because we're in this object script. Oh dear, well, that's a problem. The engine will actually crash if you don't retrieve this object. And this isn't going to work, because we will be getting this object's object ID here, so we have to do this. Previous ID. Fill this in. And this should work. As you can see, one of the object's rotations is remaining 30. Okay. So, if you actually instantiate an object, just for example, you actually need to do this inside of that object. Let's say you're making a blah 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 example. You need to set a Wildstorm global. Let's get rid of this line. And keep this line. Error cut to see. So in the object's initialization script, let's say this is some other object's initialization script, you need to, at the end of it, the very end of it, retrieve the previous object. So let's say we assign a global to it, like stack add int. This is a terrible idea in a refresh script. Previous ID. Type in previous again. Let's say object get ID true. Let's say for this example we happen to know the component ID. Let's get obj. Get object. We need to do something like this at the very end of that script. Okay. So basically, the engine will crash if you instantiate another object inside while an object is running. This is fine inside a level, but inside an object, it will crash unless you do this and get the previous object, or the object that instantiated this object. So that's a little gotcha I thought I'd cover, and a neat little method I'd also cover. The method can just be useful for anything you like. You know, if you want to manipulate another object from an object, it's nice, or another entity from an entity. It's kind of nice. You know, you can make a nice manager entity with that. But that pretty much covers it for this tutorial. Please rate, comment, subscribe, download, and experiment with Wildstorm. Thank you for watching.